Okay, so the title of my article was Organizational Factors of Non-Accidental Violence in Sport, a Systematic Review. Okay. The objective was to investigate the organizational factors that enable and motivate accidental violence towards athletes. And so non-accidental violence was various types of non-accidental harm enacted on athletes by coaches, support staff, or other athletes. And the most common forms of these violence examined in this review was psychological abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. The psychological abuse was defined as deliberate, prolonged, repeated, non-contact, harmful behaviors that harm people, emotions, cognitives, values, and beliefs about themselves and the world. This can include humiliation, scapegoating, rejection, isolation, threatening, and being ignored or denied attention and support. Physical abuse, that was showed to have happened in 49 to 75% of athletes have experienced this. Physical abuse, which is physical force causing injury, which can include punching, kicking, body checking, forced or mandated age or physique inappropriate training loads, or training when injured or in pain, or systematic doping practices. And studies showed that 11% of athletes have experienced this. And sexual abuse was defined as non-consensual conduct or sexual nature. And this included like sexist comments and gestures, unwanted sexual attention, non-penetrative and penetrative sexual assault. 14 of the athletes have experienced this, and it was more common among female athletes and elite athletes. And so researchers have used various perspectives to explain non-accidental violence in sports. One of the approaches considered non-accidental violence caused by individual factors of the instigator and targeted abuse. The other considers the driver of violence is the sport environment. Increasingly, behavior scientists are acknowledging that abuse is a result of interactions between individual factors, organizational environment, and broader societal factors. An organizational level of analysis of non-accidental focuses attention on the important structural and social causal factors that is not addressed at the individual level. And so studies have uncovered several organizational factors that are associated with workplace harassment and abuse, but those factors can also appear in sport. Structural factors mean formal and informal parameters within which the members are expected to operate. There are social factors and organizational factors. The three key structural factors might be associated with non-accidental violence is one, hierarchical nature of the relationships between different members in the possession of valuable resources, which is associated with power imbalance. And power imbalance is the basis of an instigator-target relationship and also occurs when one social actor has control over the strategic and valuable resources that the other actor depends on. The other one is the winner-take-all reward system, which is how most sports typically are structured. This can lead coaches and athletes to use whatever means necessary, including abusive methods to achieve results. And the last one is isolation. Athletes can become physically and psychologically isolated when training in remote locations, when access to training is restricted, and when training and game schedules separate them from their family. Value, beliefs, and norms both drive pro-social and anti-social workplace behavior. And of those three, there's three of them, which is conforming to the dominant values, beliefs about instrumental effects of non-accidental violence, and organizational tolerance. Conformity to a dominant value relates to uncritical acceptance and unquestioned commitment to sport values. Beliefs about the instrumental effects of non-accidental violence is the idea that non-accidental violence can be functional for motivating athletes and making them perform better. Organizational norms of tolerance for harassment or abuse provide conducive conditions for non-accidental violence to happen. And all three of these motivate and perpetuate non-accidental violence. And there's also organizational stressors, which are factors in the sport environment that place demands on expectations or organizational members that threaten their personal resources and well-being. And those are the stressors in sport, which are role conflict, role ambiguity, depersonalization, deficient internal communication, intensification, and personal uncertainty. And so for their literature review, they use those keywords, and only including studies from 2000 to 2018. And of those, 18,900 the articles were found. And to be included in the study, they had to have been empirical and use qualitative methods that had to be peer reviewed, and the authors had to have investigated a type of non-accidental violence against athletes. And the sample included athletes of their entourages as informants, and of those, 43 articles were actually included. And for their coding, they used a thematic analysis of the primary research. For research was conducted following 4 steps. And the results showed that the power imbalance, talking about the informal power, was related to psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. Formal power was related to psychological and sexual abuse. The winner take all reward system was related to psychological and physical abuse. Isolation was only related to sexual abuse. Conformity to dominant values were related to psychological, physical, and sexual abuse. Perceived instrumental effects of non-accidental violence was related to physical abuse. And of all those organizational stressors, role conflict, role ambiguity, and depersonalization were related to non-accidental violence. And they concluded that the authors recommended a whole of system approach to the prevention and management of non-accidental violence in sports.
Excellent. Thank you, Marquis. So what are we thinking, guys? Why is this literature review important?
I thought it was a really good literature review since it kind of gave like a comprehensive approach to the whole issue and kind of tried to cover all the factors involved.
Mm-hmm.
They also give you recommendation and limitation, so I think it was a good one too.
Very good. I personally think it was a really good one. Did you guys see how different it was from the one that Landon just presented?
Yes, it was.
It's still sport management. They both are. But the topics are so vast. So when you are, I hope you can't hear me screaming. I can hear them all the way over here, and I hope the microphone is not picking them up. So anyways, as I was saying, when you're preparing for your literature review, hang on, okay, hopefully that will take a little bit of the stress off of mommy. So when you're preparing for your literature review, you were just tasked with choosing a sports topic, but it doesn't it's such a wide universe, and I wanted to show you that universe right out the bat, right? And I'm not showing you all of it with this reading, which nothing is stopping you from going and reading the abstracts right now to give you more ideas about your topic early on. But I just wanted to make sure that you had an idea and you weren't limited for or from what you've been exposed to so far. And so I just wanted to show you two very different themes or two very different topics very early on. And they were supposed to be on 2 different days, you know, you guys know that, but it happened to be back to back. And I think that worked out even better. Okay, so what did we learn from this literature review? Tyler.
Yeah, I think it was kind of interesting to hear like all the different types of like, like abuse or violence or non-violence and stuff. I think this kind of stuff probably happens more often than you think, and people might not even realize like that it is happening, but then hearing all the different ways that it can happen might kind of, open your eyes a bit more and realize, oh, this, I might know somebody this is happening to, or this has happened to me and I never even realized it. So I think it was good. I think it was a bit of an eye opener for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, when have we ever considered training injured or overtraining abusive? Right? We just do what we're told, and we are athletes and we're tough. And so we run through the pain and we, just push through it. And
yeah, it was kind of crazy when I read the stats when they said like 43% go through physical abuse and like almost 10% go through psychological and sexual abuse. So that was crazy to hear that so many athletes go through that, because you don't really see it on whenever like I'm around athletes. You don't really see that, but actually a lot of people go through that.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I will have you note that only 13% of the cases of sexual abuse go unreported. Go reported. So, all the rest of them are happening behind closed doors and nobody knows about it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, when this article says that, 14% of athletes, mostly women, are sexually abused, that is a gross underrepresentation of what is actually going on to our athletes, with our athletes. And women report way more than men do.
Yeah.
There is even more stigma to being sexually abused if you're a male. So now that we know all of the underlying causes of all of this, or all of the telltale signs, right? Because that's what this article is unveiling. They're lifting the curtain on everything that happens to prime these athletes for abuse, like the isolation and the neglect. And, like they give you all these little tidbits of information. What are you, as the future leaders in sport management, going to do with this information?
Hmm. That's a good question.
I think it's a good way to make like educational policies and procedures, kind of like how they talked about at the end, that we can use it to like educate people. And as like athletic trainers, we can try to like look for these situations, because a lot of times I feel like we're a little bit like tunnel visioned, and we don't always look for how they talked about the athletes with like the initiation and hazing and stuff. We don't always look for that. It's more of a different kind of nonviolent abuse that we look for. So just to help us be more aware too.
Right. And in sports, we have people dedicated to everything, right? We have athletic trainers dedicated only to injuries, and we have marketers dedicated only to selling, and we have sport communication specialists dedicated only to talking about our sports, and social media specialists dedicated only to our social media presence. And we don't have anybody dedicated to athlete profession or athlete protection. Or is there? And I'm not aware.
I don't think so.
Right. And with the numbers that we just saw, And this is research. This is not just someone's opinion. This is based on statistics and based on facts. And granted, all research is biased, right? This started from someone's idea, and that idea is based on someone's experiences. And so my research will be different than William's research because we have different stances on things. But that doesn't mean that we're manipulating the data or anything. The data still shows what the data shows. It's just what we're looking for, right? Starts out, the seed is different because our experiences are different to begin with. But that being said, the numbers are the numbers. So, I mean, there is a Title IX representative and there is a process for reporting abuse, but how often does it get, you know, reported? How often does it get investigated properly? How often does it get investigated in a way that it does not deter from future reports? How often, you know, does it have a favorable outcome for all the parties involved? You know, because it can go both ways in terms of when somebody is accused of something, that may be the end of their career, right?
Yeah.
So we have got to be not only very sensitive towards the target who is making the accusation, because it's really hard to make an accusation of violence, any kind of violence, and protect them, but also at the same time, it may be a career-ending accusation for the person that's being accused as well. So where is the line and who are you responsible to protect?
I think some good examples, like when kind of looking at this, is the whole scandal and of the Michigan State team doctor from, I can't recall how many years ago it was, but it's been fairly recent, I think within the last 5 or 6 years. And,
Right.
you know, and a lot of people were afraid to come forward, but once they did and started speaking out the truth and speaking out what they experienced with him, like you were saying, it ruined his career. I mean, there's no way that what he did at Michigan State or what the team doctor did, there's no way he can recover from that when it comes to a professional career.
Well,
And
are you talking about Larry Nassar, the gymnastics doctor?
is that the same one? Or I know the Team USA gymnastics doctor was one, or is it?
It's the same one.
It was. It was.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There is no way he's ever practicing medicine again.
Yeah. And so just kind of thinking of those, you know, the Team USA and the Michigan State thing, it's just crazy to think that all this was kind of like under the radar and under the hood for all these years. And then once, like I said, they started speaking out the truth of what he was really doing behind the scenes, yeah, there's just no way to recover from that professionally. And I think that's a good example here. And something really interesting that we can look at, because just in the snap of a finger, that's how quick a career can end for you. So,
right. Well, in all fairness, he is a criminal, but let's think about someone that, you know, is falsely accused, or someone that didn't do something criminal, someone that maybe did something wrong, but that wasn't criminal. So I'm thinking Tiger Woods. You know, he cheated on his wife. He was a sex addict. Or was he just adulterous? I don't remember. I don't recall. It was many years ago. But I mean, I don't think he has. Go ahead.
I thought he just cheated on his wife. I don't remember too much about it because I was young at that point. So,
Yeah.
but I do remember a lot of incidences with his wife.
Right.
Yeah, it was a sex scandal.
I want to say that his excuse was that he was a sex addict and now he has recovered. So, which, it's a real illness. So, but he hasn't quite been able to recover his career to the extent that he had it. Has he?
I mean, he won the Masters 2 years ago, but like that was like his like comeback story, I guess you could say. But since then, he's kind of been up and down, on and off the radar, and he's had all these surgeries and everything, um, and and whatnot. So I mean, his career has not been the same at all since that whole thing. And I guess it was like '09 or 2010 when all that came out. And um, then he like fell out of like the top 100 of the world rankings at one point. Everybody's like, Tiger Woods is finished, and everything. And he finally takes those 2 or 3 years off to really regroup and regather himself and get all those surgeries. And then he comes back in 2018 and is the story of the year by winning the Masters. So, and I'm sure Luca or some of the golf guys could go probably more into detail about that. But, just seeing the adversity that he overcame was an inspiring story. But at the same time, you're like, wow, this man, he'd been through it all in the last 8 to 10 years, but he comes back and wins the Masters, and now he's kind of dealing with some more injuries again. And so it's just like, when is it going to be time for him to, put up the clubs and just, no longer be on the PGA Tour,
Oh, and I think I'm talking about his career in terms of all the endorsement deals he had, the publicity he enjoyed, the fame, the support from the crowd, because there was all this love for him, and it was.
Oh yeah, he was an American figure for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like a good example I think of is like, because Tiger, the benefit of being like a golfer is that you can just go out there. Like, let's say he didn't get hurt, his reputation would be still shot, but career wise, he could still go out and win every tournament if he just, separated the two. I think of like Greg Marshall, the coach at Wichita State. Like, they'd been like historically great, barely lost, brought him even into the top 5. And so there'd been accounts of years of him like verbally belittling players or making like, remarks that weren't suitable for a head coach talking to his players. And so after that built up over time, finally does it come out this offseason. And I mean, he got a nice buyout, but he's, no longer a basketball coach anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally don't think Tiger's reputation has changed much. When that incident came out, there was a lot of people that were against him and a lot of people that were saying that he's done and everything. And then, in 2019, he won the Masters. He won the Tour Championship in 2018. And the Masters was, some people refer to it as the greatest comeback in sports. And, in the golfing world, he just recently had his 5th back surgery. So he's been struggling with his back issues for quite some time now, which is probably the biggest problem of his right now, is because he's simply not able to work as hard and as efficient as he was able to when he was in his prime. So I think that's the biggest problem Tiger's facing right now.
Yeah.
But in regards to, the publicity and everything, he's still a legend in golf. And every single time he comes out and every single time he commits to playing in a tournament, all these different Instagram sites just blow out, saying Tiger is committed to playing in this. So I think his reputation is still pretty good, at least in the golfing world.
Well, that's good.
I can kind of agree with Luca too, with his reputation. Like, I do see where Luca is coming from, but and also like if you go back, oh, I don't know how long ago it was. It was a couple of weeks or so ago. He and his son were doing like this father son golf tournament, and it was like watching Tiger Woods at the age of 10 or 12 because his son was exactly like him, and people were like, man, this is Tiger Woods Jr. This is his kid is just like him on the golf course and everything. And so that that public positive view of him, yes, is still there. And I think people seeing him with his son on the golf course, and just the way that uh, they were similarized in the way that they acted, and all the motions that they went through. They were so alike, and people really were tweeting about that and everything, and going to social media saying it's crazy how much alike these two are, and this kid's going to be just like his dad was. And uh, but I do think that public positivity has come back in the last couple of years, and but the whole thing with the scandal, or I don't know if you could really call it a scandal with him, but like that whole incident he had will always still be there, kind of on his back, just because that was one of the most talked about things that year. But I think people have grown that respect back for him.
Yeah, well, he will always be one of the greatest golf players of all times. And, I hope that
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that my example was a bad example, and I definitely like Henry's better. Let's just leave it at that. But yes, okay. So what are we seeing on this literature review as far as the literature review part goes? Like the methodology, the data collection, what did they do that was similar or different to the one we just read? Or that Landon just presented? And this is the part of the discussion that's going to help you for when you are doing your homework.
I think the second article had more of a clear and defined criteria for like collecting certain articles. Like they use keywords that were seen in the articles to like bring all the data together from the articles to make certain like conclusions from it.
Excellent. Yes, so the first article was not a systematic literature review. This article is a systematic literature review. At the end of this class, you're going to turn in a systematic literature review. So when you're doing your search, you may want to revisit the methods section of this article. And thank you, Matt, by the way. And see how they did it and model yours after theirs a little bit. Make it your own, but use this as a template or a model for when you're doing your article search. Very good. What was in this article that was useful, helpful, or interesting? In the other article, we talked about someone talking?
No, I think Tashina was just trying to get back on.
Oh, okay. Hi, Isabel. So yeah, in the other article, we talked about how they get gave a little bit of background on the types of crisis and the types of communication strategies that can be used to handle those crises. What did this article do as part of their lit review? CJ?
Um, yeah, like y'all said, the whole use of keywords and all that, I think it was it definitely helps narrowing the search and making it real specific.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Tanner? Thank you, CJ.
I'm sorry, my computer died and I had to reconnect on my phone. What was the question?
Yes. The question is, what was in this article that was useful?
Well, I think just the general knowledge of what the non-accidental violence is, and just how it can be implemented into athletic organizations, just as a whole of organization approach.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're getting somewhere. Thank you, Tanner. Thank you. I forgot who I was talking to. I'm like, it started with a thing. Okay, so we're getting somewhere, right? Background, and then this article gave definitions, and then both articles gave implementations, right? So there are three key components that we have seen that are similar in both articles: background, definitions, implementations. And then both articles have methodology because the systematically review should have methodology. But yeah, questions so far. Are you guys starting to see how the weekly readings are going to help you with your homework? Because so they're not there just to bore you or just to make you busy work, read. It's part of what's going to be useful to build your own, to model it after something that has already been done. Now, I'm starting you off with really good ones. Let me remind you, not all of them are going to be really good ones. There are some of these readings that if you model your paper after this, you are going to fail. And I'll tell you which ones those are. I won't leave you hanging. But I just wanted to put that out there because I meant to put it in the syllabus and I didn't. I realized I didn't. And so I wanted to make sure I said it. All right, so for the next few minutes, 40 or so, I want you to work on your lit review. I'll be here if you have questions on your revised research question or your literature search. The library was a mess last week. It was not working, but it should be working this week. And so if you have any problems, I'm right here on Zoom. You're welcome to stay connected or you're welcome to disconnect if you want to try to, long wolf it and do it on your own. But I'll be here until around noon or so for you guys to work in the background and reach out to me. Just unmute yourselves and ask me questions.
I was going to say earlier in the first article, I thought it was interesting, like with all the shooting that happened at the event. You gotta wonder how was I able to get a weapon into the event if there was security.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if there was security, because they talked about the NFL and the MLB having, metal detectors and all this. Did they have that for esport?
I didn't read anything about that in that article.
Right. I'm assuming, and this is my assumption, so it can be totally off, that esport was not expecting a shooting, especially for a $5,000 tournament with, like that's not a major tournament, so it probably didn't have a huge crowd present, and so they probably did not implement all the security that an NFL, game will implement.
I could have read it wrong, but didn't they say the esports one was in like a bar? It wasn't in like a venue. It was more in like a bar, restaurant-y kind of place. So that wouldn't necessarily have.
I think you're right.
Detectors. Like I'm thinking like a Dave and Buster's almost. They don't have metal detectors at Dave and Buster's.
I think you are right. Yeah, because this was actually also early in esports, right? I will hope by now they implement all the security that all the other professional sports do. Speaking of which, is esports a professional sport? Your face said it all.
Getting there. I mean, technically, I guess, but probably not as, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's in the Olympics yet, but it doesn't feel like the Olympics is like the gold standard for professional sports, other than some, that was, no, never mind, ignore what I just said.
My undergraduate students are very passionate that esports is definitely not a sport.
I feel like it is, because you can be a professional in anything. They have professional chess players, and
so is chess a sport?
I think it was one of the articles we read last semester that said something about esports needing like the focus, not necessarily esports, but sports in that family kind of needing the same focus that like race car drivers or things like that need. Like, no, you don't necessarily need to be like 6'3", 270 to be this athlete, but that still is a very hard thing to do.
Right. I mean, they really do need to like eat right and work on their posture and their core muscles, and they get wrist injuries and thumb injuries, and well, they get thumb injuries from signing consent forms. So to each their own. But yeah, fun stuff. But hey, they have the sponsors and they have everything that we sport managers need to apply our knowledge to. So it might qualify as entertainment, just like the WWE qualifies as entertainment as opposed to competitive sport, but I don't know. I don't know either way. I'm on the fence, I guess. Some days I think it's a sport. Some days I strongly believe it isn't. Depends on the day. But yeah, it does qualify for most of the, and I guess part of the problem is we don't have a set definition of what sports is, right? So yeah. But anyways, any closing remarks, comments, questions, or concerns before we break to work on lit reviews? Normally, if this was class time, and we were in the classroom, we will work on this in the classroom, and I will walk around and answer questions and check on your work. But because it's virtual and the virtual environment is best practices is to be more flexible, I will be okay if you log off and come back on if you have questions. And if you don't have questions and you don't come back on, that's fine. But I will be here until noon. All right. If there are no more questions, comments, or concerns, let's show.
Next week we're on Zoom or in class?
You scared me. Shush. Okay. Yes, very good question.
Sorry.
Today, my children are off quarantine on February 1st, which is Monday. So next week we are in the classroom, unless I accidentally get put on quarantine again, in which case I'm going to saw off my own foot. But yes, I expect to see you in the classroom. And also on February the 16th, that is 3 classes from now, I have my second shot. And guess at what time it is? 9:45. And it should be on campus, but I got a notice that said that it was off campus. So I would probably see you at 10:30 at that time as well. But that's not until the 16th. So as for your question, Gianluca, February 2nd, I will see you in the classroom.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, good deal. Great. And let's show our appreciation to our presenters for the day virtually in any which way you can. And I'll be here until noon to answer any questions. Destiny, tell Marquis I show him my appreciation like this because he wasn't watching.
You said thank you.